There is a version of your life where nothing anyone says about you lands, where criticism slides off you like water off stone, where rejection does not hollow you out, where betrayal does not break you, where the opinions of people who do not even know you cannot reach the deepest parts of who you are, where you wake up every single morning with the unshakable certainty that what happens to you today cannot touch the core of who you are unless you personally hand it that power. That life is not a fantasy. That life is not reserved for people with extraordinary genetics or rare psychological gifts or perfect childhoods or favorable circumstances. That life is a philosophy, a practiced, tested, battle-hardened philosophy that was forged not in a university or a comfortable study, but in the most brutal classroom that has ever existed: slavery. Epictetus was born a slave. Not metaphorically, not in the way modern people use the word to describe a demanding job or a difficult relationship. Literally, owned property. A human being with no legal rights, no guaranteed safety, no certainty about tomorrow, no control over where he went or what he did or what was done to him. His owner, by historical accounts, once broke his leg deliberately, slowly, while Epictetus watched it happening to demonstrate power over him. And Epictetus, by those same accounts, looked at his owner calmly and said, "You are going to break it." And when it broke, he said, "Did I not tell you it would break?" No rage, no begging, no collapse, just that devastating, impenetrable calm. That calm was not indifference. It was not numbness. It was not the absence of feeling. It was something infinitely more powerful than any of those things. It was the product of a philosophy so precise, so rigorously applied, so deeply lived, that it had transformed the experience of suffering itself. It had drawn a line, a clear, absolute, unbreachable line, between what the world could do to his body and what it could do to his soul. And on the other side of that line, in the territory of his soul, nothing and nobody had ever been given entry. That philosophy is called Stoicism. And today we are going to break it open. Not the sanitized version that gets turned into productivity advice, the real version. The version that was forged in chains and emerged as the most liberating set of ideas in the history of human thought. Because if Epictetus could find unconquerable freedom while literally enslaved, what is your excuse for giving away your peace to people who are not even thinking about you? Let us begin. The entire architecture of Epictetan philosophy rests on a single distinction, a distinction so simple that you can explain it in one sentence, and so profound that it takes a lifetime to fully inhabit. The distinction is this: some things are in your control, everything else is not. And the degree to which your life is peaceful, powerful, and undefeated is directly proportional to how clearly you understand which is which, and how completely you stop caring about the second category. Epictetus called this the dichotomy of control, and he was almost fanatical about it. He returned to it in everything he taught. He built his entire school of thought on it, because he understood from lived experience that most philosophers never have, that the source of every human suffering is not what happens to a person. It is the story a person tells about what happens to them. It is the weight they assign to things that were never in their control. It is the exhausting, soul-destroying habit of caring desperately about things they have absolutely no power over. Think about your own life for a moment. Be honest. Brutally, uncomfortably honest. How much of your mental and emotional energy right now, today, is consumed by things you cannot control? The opinion that person has of you, whether that opportunity is going to come through, what that group of people is saying about you behind your back, whether the economy is going to cooperate with your plans, whether someone is going to acknowledge what you did, whether life is going to be fair to you this time. All of that energy, all of that anxiety, all of that churning, grinding, exhausting mental labor. And none of it, not a single drop of it, is being spent on anything you can actually change. Epictetus would look at that and feel something close to horror. Not because you are weak, but because you are powerful and you do not know it yet. Because you are pouring the most precious resource you possess, your attention, your energy, your peace, into a hole in the ground and wondering why you feel empty. Here is what is in your control: your choices, your effort, your values, your response to what happens to you, your interpretation of events, the standard you hold yourself to when nobody is watching, the integrity you bring to every action regardless of whether it is recognized or rewarded, the decision, made fresh every single morning, about who you are going to be today. That is your kingdom. That is the territory that belongs to you completely, and that nobody, not your critics, not your enemies, not your circumstances, not the cruelty of fate itself, can ever enter without your explicit invitation. And here is the devastating truth that Epictetus spent his entire career communicating. Most people voluntarily hand out those invitations 100 times a day. They give the key to their kingdom to strangers on the internet. They give it to coworkers who barely know their name. They give it to family members who are fighting their own unexamined battles. They give it to memories of people who are no longer even present in their lives. They scatter the keys to their inner peace like confetti, and then cannot understand why they feel so violated, so exposed, so endlessly exhausted. Stop giving out the keys. Now let us talk about what it actually means to stop giving a fuck. Because this phrase gets thrown around like a bumper sticker, and it deserves to be treated with considerably more precision than that. Stopping giving a fuck does not mean becoming cold. It does not mean becoming indifferent to the people you love, or the work you care about, or the world you inhabit. Epictetus was not a cold man. By all accounts, he was warm, deeply caring, genuinely concerned with the well-being of his students and his community. The Stoics were not emotional deserts. They were people who had learned to direct their emotional energy with extraordinary precision. What it means to stop giving a fuck, in the Epictetan sense, is to stop giving your peace away to things that have not earned it and cannot use it. It is the discipline of distinguishing between what deserves your caring and what has been stealing your caring without permission. It is the decision to be deeply, fully, genuinely invested in what is yours to control while maintaining absolute serenity about everything that is not. That distinction changes everything, because when you stop bleeding energy into the uncontrollable, you suddenly have an almost shocking amount of it available for what actually matters. The work you want to do, the relationships you want to build, the person you want to become, the life you are actually capable of living when you stop spending all your resources mourning the life you wish you had been given. Let us talk about what other people think of you, because this is where most people lose the most ground. Epictetus had a position on this that was so clear it bordered on ruthless. The opinion other people hold of you is not in your control. Full stop. You can behave with integrity and someone will still think you are dishonest. You can be generous and someone will still think you are selfish. You can produce extraordinary work and someone will still dismiss it. You can love someone completely and they will still misread your intentions. None of that is a referendum on your worth. None of that is information about who you actually are. It is information about the filters, the wounds, the limitations, and the projections of the person doing the perceiving. And yet, people will spend years of their lives, sometimes decades, twisting themselves into shapes they do not recognize, making themselves smaller or louder or different or more palatable, chasing the approval of people who have neither the information nor the authority to judge them accurately. They will sacrifice authentic relationships for impressive ones. They will sacrifice meaningful work for recognized work. They will sacrifice who they actually are for who they think they need to be in order to finally finally be accepted. Epictetus looked at this and called it what it is: voluntary slavery. You were born free in the only sense that matters, free in your own mind, free in your own choices, free in your own values, and you have been systematically giving that freedom away to people who never asked for it and never deserved it. Take it back. Right here, at this exact moment in this conversation, I want to make you a promise. If you have been watching this channel and these ideas have been slowly building something in you, some new clarity, some growing refusal to keep living at half capacity, some increasing conviction that the philosophy of the ancient world has something urgent and immediately applicable to say to your modern life, then do not lose this thread. Subscribe to this channel right now. Every week we bring you the thinking that strips away the noise and gets to the core of what it actually means to live well, live powerfully, and live free. The Stoics, the existentialists, the great thinkers who paid for their wisdom in ways most of us will never have to pay, left us everything we need. This channel exists to make sure you have access to all of it. Subscribe now. Be part of a community that is done being managed by fear and ready to be driven by philosophy. Now let us talk about pain, because Epictetus did not pretend that life was painless. He did not teach a philosophy of denial. He taught something far more sophisticated and far more useful. He made a distinction between pain and suffering that should fundamentally reorganize how you relate to difficulty. Pain in the Epictetan framework is what happens to you. It is the external event, the loss, the betrayal, the failure, the illness, the disappointment. Pain is real. Pain is sometimes unavoidable. Pain is part of the price of being alive and caring about things. Suffering is different. Suffering is what you add to pain through your interpretation of it. Suffering is the story you tell about the pain. It is the meaning you assign to it. It is the judgment you layer on top of the raw experience. It is the part where you decide that this pain means you are cursed, or unlucky, or undeserving, or that life is against you, or that you will never recover. That is suffering, and almost all of it is optional. This is not a comfortable teaching. It is not the teaching that says your feelings are invalid, or that you should not grieve, or that difficulty should be met with forced cheerfulness. It is something considerably more demanding than that. It is the teaching that says you have far more authorship over your inner experience than you have been exercising, that the narrative you construct around what happens to you is a choice, even when it does not feel like one, and that the discipline of choosing a more empowering narrative is not self-deception. It is the highest form of self-governance. When Epictetus had his leg broken by his owner, he did not pretend it did not hurt. He did not perform serenity for an audience. He exercised a discipline he had been building for years, the discipline of locating himself in the part of his experience that was unconquerable, his judgment, his values, his response, the part of him that his owner could damage but could never own. That discipline is available to you. It is built through practice, not through wishing. It is built through the daily, sometimes hourly, decision to return to the question, is this in my control? And if the answer is no, to release it with the same deliberateness with which you would put down a heavy bag you have been carrying unnecessarily for miles. Let us talk about relationships, because this is where the philosophy becomes most intimate and most immediately applicable to most people's lives. Epictetus taught that every relationship in your life should be held with what he called open hands, not closed fists. Open hands. The difference is everything. Closed fists grip, they demand, they possess. They are terrified of loss because their entire sense of security is located in the thing they are holding. And the tighter they grip, the more they damage both themselves and what they are gripping. Open hands hold with love and without desperation. They are fully present, fully engaged, fully invested in the relationship while simultaneously free from the compulsion to control it. They love without owning. They care without clinging. They give without keeping score. And crucially, when a relationship ends, when a person leaves, when the connection dissolves for whatever reason, open hands grieve but do not shatter. Because the grief is real, but the identity was never located there. This is the Epictetus teaching on love that nobody talks about because it sounds cold until you actually understand it. He is not saying do not love. He is saying do not make your love into a chain. Do not love in a way that turns the other person into the source of your stability, your worth, your reason to exist. Because when you do that, you have outsourced the most important thing about yourself to something you cannot control. And you have made yourself infinitely, unnecessarily vulnerable in the process. Love fully, love openly, love with everything you have, and hold it all in open hands. Now, let us talk about reputation, about what people say about you when you are not in the room, about the rumors, the mischaracterizations, the unfair judgments, the criticism both deserved and undeserved. Epictetus had a line on this that is worth tattooing somewhere visible. He said that if someone told you that a particular person was speaking badly of you, you should not make excuses for yourself or defend yourself. Instead, you should simply say, clearly that person did not know all my faults, or they would have mentioned more. That response carries within it a level of self-possession that is almost incomprehensible to most modern people. It requires first that you have done the work of knowing yourself honestly enough that external criticism cannot surprise or destabilize you. It requires that your sense of self is not housed in what others think, but in what you actually know to be true about yourself. It requires the deep security of a person who has stopped needing the world's story about them to match the story they tell themselves. That security is not arrogance. It is the opposite of arrogance. Arrogance is fragile. It needs constant external validation to maintain itself. True self-possession needs nothing from the outside. It is self-sustaining. It is grounded in something that public opinion cannot reach. And from that ground, criticism becomes information rather than injury. It can be examined, used if useful, discarded if not, without ever threatening the core. Let us talk about mortality. Because Epictetus did, constantly, and because the Stoic relationship with death is perhaps the most radical and most liberating part of the entire philosophy, he taught his students to practice what the Stoics called memento mori. Remember that you will die, not as a morbid obsession, but as a clarifying discipline, because the awareness of death does something to your priorities that nothing else can do. It burns away the trivial with extraordinary efficiency. It makes the opinion of that person who barely knows you suddenly seem like what it is, completely irrelevant. It makes the small humiliations and petty social dramas that consume so much of daily life shrink to their actual size, which is microscopic. When you hold the awareness of your own death with clarity and without flinching, something remarkable happens. The things that used to steal your peace lose their grip almost automatically, because you can see them for what they are: small, temporary, infinitely less important than the hours you are spending worrying about them. And the things that actually matter, the depth of your relationships, the integrity of your work, the quality of your presence in the lives of the people you love, those things come into focus with a sharpness that is almost painful. Epictetus did not teach this to make his students depressed. He taught it to make them awake, genuinely, urgently, irreversibly awake to the fact that every day they spend paralyzed by what other people think is a day they will never get back. Every hour surrendered to anxiety about the uncontrollable is an hour of actual living that has been permanently forfeited. You are going to die. Not today, hopefully. Not soon, if fortune is kind. But with absolute certainty, you are going to die. And on that day, do you want to look back at a life spent managing the perceptions of people who did not matter, chasing the approval of audiences that were never satisfied, giving the keys to your inner kingdom to anyone who knocked? Or do you want to look back at a life lived from the inside out? A life where your choices came from your values and not from your fears? A life where you loved without chains and worked without apology and spoke without performance? A life where nothing and nobody could reach the core of you because you had done the work of making that core unassailable? That life is the one Epictetus was pointing at with everything he ever taught. That life is what Stoicism actually is when you strip away the productivity advice and the self-help packaging and get to the raw, original, terrifying, and liberating truth of it. It is freedom. Complete, unconditional, undefeatable freedom. Not the freedom from difficulty, not the freedom from pain, but the freedom from being controlled by either of those things. The freedom that comes from finally, clearly, irrevocably understanding the difference between what is yours and what is not. And then, with that understanding burning in you like a fire that will not go out, making the choice, every day, every hour, every moment that it is required, to give your energy only to what is yours, to stop hemorrhaging peace into the void of the uncontrollable, to stop handing out keys, to stop making your serenity dependent on the cooperation of a world that was never going to cooperate on your schedule, to stop giving a fuck about what cannot be changed and to give everything you have to what can. Epictetus built that philosophy in chains. He proved that no external circumstance, no matter how crushing, could reach the last unconquerable territory of a human being who had decided to govern themselves. You are not in chains. You have every advantage he never had. Every freedom he fought his entire life to earn in the only place it was available to him, inside his own mind, has been handed to you as a birthright. The only question is whether you are going to use it. Stop giving your peace away. Stop making your worth conditional on external approval. Stop letting the uncontrollable govern the controllable. Stop living in the enormous, exhausting gap between what you want the world to be and what it actually is. Come back inside. Come back to the only kingdom that has ever been yours. Come back to the clean, clear, powerful truth that what you think, what you choose, what you value, and how you respond is entirely and forever yours. And from that place, nothing and nobody will ever hurt you again. Epictetus proved it was possible. Now it is your turn to live it.